All right, everybody, I'm going to call us to order. It's really loud. Thank you. Lacey, would you like to do the acknowledgement of land, please? Ms. Poitras, Trustee Poitras.
Oki, welcome to our division office located on the traditional land and territory of the Niitsitapi, Piikani, Kainai, and Siksika, the Blackfoot people, within the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Is there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, can I get somebody to move the consent agenda as adopted, or presented, or amended? Greg? Emergent changes to the agenda. Is there any emergent changes to the agenda? Clara? Clara, can you please speak into your microphone?
There you go. For number professional learning F7, could you please change that to Clara and Jim?
Great, thank you. Jeff?
Yes, if it would be permissible, I would like to add a motion around the transfer of land in Clara's home for the early learning site. So
Yep.
Transfer of land.
I think we can put that as I think we'll put it as F8 because I'm actually going to ask that we table F8, which is the IMR, just because of it not being quite ready yet. So under the action item, we can make it F8 and we'll table the IMR and plan until the next board meeting, November 27th.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get that. I have one more change to the agenda too. With Richard not being able to be here today and Eliza's not here, I'm going to ask that we table the G1, which is the Regional Council of Student Leaders update. We'll table it to the next meeting, which will either be November 27th or December 13th, depending on the availability of Eliza. G3? What did I say? Well, it says G1. Oh, on mine it's wrong. Sorry, G3. Yeah. I have an old copy, I think. So if there's no other emergent changes to the agenda, I recommend that the October 9, 2019 regular board meeting agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. Can I get somebody to make the motion? Clara? All in favor? Passed. Declaration of conflict of interest, that the Board of Trustees declare if they have any conflicts of interest relating to agenda items from the October 9, 2019 board meeting, and if so, should declare them. Seeing none? Moving on to discussion items. E1, Christmas activities. That the Board of Trustees will discuss upcoming Christmas events, including school concert schedules, central office staff lunch, and colony visits. So up on the screen, Nikki has been in contact with, no, we don't have a copy. Nikki can send it if we need to. Nikki has contacted everybody. I think most people have replied, maybe not all the colony schools. Is that correct, Nikki? Okay. Matthew Halton doesn't, I don't think usually does. So I just want to make sure that if we can have representation at any of the Christmas concerts and within your ward, that would be appreciated. We could do, yeah, so last time when we, except for, last time Nikki sent out for the, when we did sorry, go ahead, Clara.
I was going to say, I do know when Livingston is. That's that Thursday before Christmas break, before that, whatever that, I don't have my book with me, so,
19th.
yeah, it's on Thursday at 1 o'clock.
Oh. Mr. McKee? Pull it forward, please. There you go.
Okay, for the very first one of AB Daily, I believe that is on December 19th. And they're having a dance play. Now, I'm not exactly sure what's all involved, but it's supposed to be a dance play,
Oh, that's the
a
Tricksters.
performance. Pardon?
Is that Trickster that's listed up there?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that, no, I think what we'll do, Nikki sent out when we had the Remembrance Day ceremonies, she sent out a form that if everybody could put their name beside what they could attend. That worked really well, except for everybody just needs to fill it out. So I can see where, make sure every area is covered. Would everybody be okay with that, or would you rather go through it? Can I get a show of hands just for Nikki to send it out, please, and everybody can fill out their form? Okay, Nikki, thank you.
Do you have CC address up there? Nikki?
Yep,
Okay, yeah, I have it here, okay.
yep.
Marcel's not there yet.
You guys
All
can
right,
fill in those
so,
dates. You guys can
Trustee
fill in those
Poitras?
dates when you log on to it, because we can edit the document.
Mr. Toon, can you shut off your mic when you're talking, please?
Are we trying to have someone attend all of the Colony School Christmas concerts as well this year?
I think as many as we can, not all of them have Christmas concerts.
Okay.
So where we can have somebody to attend within your ward, that would be beneficial.
And are we doing candy canes this year or just Christmas concerts?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Could I, for Horace Allen, they're having a winter, they call it their winter concert.
Winter
And that's
Fest
on the
Family Night?
19th, but I don't know the time.
Okay.
It's usually at night or later on in the afternoon.
Okay. Thank you. And if there's any more that is not up here and you guys know, you can always email Nikki and then she can fill it in on the sheet if you find out before she does. We also need to have a discussion around, we always do a luncheon for our central office administration and board. And we usually do that at our next board meeting, but Mike has some availability issues, and so we need to have a discussion as a board as to whether this will work or not for us this year and what we need to do. Do you have his dates up, Nikki? Sorry. Yeah, I'm trying. Our next board meeting is December 13th, and I believe Mike was not available to cater. Do we want to find someone else to cater? Do we want to plan a different day for a luncheon? I'd like to open it up for discussion, please.
Point of order, it's December 11th, not the 13th.
Our board meeting, sorry. I keep saying 13th. Today's the 13th. Thank you, Clara. Or Trustee Yeager, sorry. Can anybody feel like commenting on that, please? I'm looking for a recommendation because Mike's not available for our board meeting to have a Christmas lunch. And usually we have our Christmas luncheon on our board meeting dates.
So I think it works best if we do it the day of that meeting. So I would check to see if there's somebody else who could do it.
And Nikki, did you have those dates? December 11th was one of them, I believe, right? Yeah. All right. No other recommendations coming forward, then Mr. Toon?
I would just say that if there isn't any other availability on that date, maybe look at doing our day we get back in January, a welcome back, Happy New Year luncheon, just for logistics might be easier for you to get availability for that than the busy Christmas season.
All right, we'll look at both and then we'll come back to the board. Thank you, everyone. On to E2, budget. Mr. Perry.
Okay, thank you. So Nikki's bringing up a document. Really, this agenda item is budget impact. So we're still working on the budget update, which will be brought to you, the board, for information purposes at the end of this month. We have received the budget announcement on October 24th, and so this is just kind of a look at what the impact is to our jurisdiction based on that announcement, based on other factors such as enrollment increases and things of that nature. So we've talked about some of those items, but as it relates to budget, this document is something that I put together just to give an indication in the best way that I can find to share with you the information of the budget and the changes therefore. So thank you, that's much better. The first part is actually the budget announcement. So the government, what they indicated on October 24th. So there were some grant items that were removed, and there was a one-time transitional funding grant that was put back in its place. So the class size grant is one of the grants that was removed. For us, that was about $1.342 million that was in our budget. And so it's the first three lines there, those together equate to about 1.342 million. The next grant item that was reduced was the Alberta Education Funding in Place of School Fees. So that was a grant that we received when a previous government legislated the inability to charge for certain fees, supplies, materials, basic fees for education. In its place, that government provided a grant, and our amount for that was about $129,000. So that was a grant item that was removed out of the funding framework. Also removed was the classroom improvement funding. We did not budget for that in the spring, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but that was $471,000. So on the right side it says spring, on the left side it says fall. The grant that was introduced was the one-time transitional funding grant, and for rural jurisdictions that was about $356 per FTE student, equating for us to an estimate of just over $1.152 million. And when you net all of that together, our net impact from the budget announcement is about a decrease of almost $790,000 from the previous year. Okay. One item that I did not include in here is that the nutrition grant was, prior to the budget announcement, was provided. So there was information that it was going to be not reinstated because they didn't officially take it away, but it was announced that it would be continuing. And for us, that's about $308,000. And why I didn't include that in here, I included at the bottom of the spreadsheet as a target grant, because it can only be used for nutrition, for the nutrition program. If you don't use it for that, you can't use it for anything else. And so it doesn't go into the general pot of funds to be able to address educational issues. It's targeted for nutrition program. And so, okay, so the impact on the education side of things is about $790,000. We were fortunate in that we had budgeted for fewer students than we actually received in the year. And so we have, when you look at it FTE wise, it's about 81.75 funded students greater than what we had originally budgeted. And well, I know we talk about 0.5 as a ECS student being 0.5, but this one says 0.75, which homeschool students are 0.25 FTE. So that's why it equates to that. That's about a $520,000 increase in our base funding. It's doesn't add too much for our differential funding because some grants increase and some grants decrease. So it's about a $6,000 increase estimated to be anyways. And that's the provincial funding that we receive. So it's about $530,000 more in that area. In the First Nation area, we have 1.5 students more than what we originally budgeted. But this is an area where we found that we had under budgeted for the amount of grant that we would be receiving. We actually under budgeted it in the prior year. So in the spring when we were doing this budget, we didn't know of the inclusive grant that we would be receiving from the through the First Nations for students coming off of reserve to attend our schools. And so this is an adjustment in this budget as well. And so it's about $273,000. So that's made up of a slight increase in students, a slight increase to the grant rate, and the inclusive grant that we received in those areas. And that comes to about $800,000, which offsets really the amount of funding that we were reduced by the announcement. So $12,000 difference. There's additional factors that need to be considered. And so when you look at the classroom improvement grant, we didn't actually budget for it. So the fact that the government didn't continue that grant doesn't affect us too much, so I removed that back out as far as our overall impact because we didn't budget for it. We made the decision in the spring that we would accommodate some of those programming through some of our reserves, and so we did not budget for that, and not as a result, but the result was that they didn't include that. So other areas that have a significant impact on the overall impact of the budget is during that time period we had heard that our insurance would be increased significantly for property insurance. And when I say significantly, that's probably an understatement. So just based on the fact that we're part of a group that is built up of rural jurisdictions, those rural jurisdictions, not necessarily us, had significant claims over the last many years with regards to fires, with regards to floods. So I can think of the 3 flyers, the Slave Lake, the High Level, the Fort McMurray, and the floods in High River and so forth, and other claims, regular claims, and increased the paid loss ratio significantly. And as a result, our insurance company had a challenging time getting us insurance for this upcoming year. And so the rates went up significantly. So we're talking $355,000 budget up to about almost a $900,000 hit. So about $542,000 increase in our expenditures for this upcoming year is something that was significant that I added to this analysis because it certainly has an impact on any funding that we would have received. In addition to the increased enrollment, there's additional allocations that go out to schools with regards to staffing. Sometimes it's not a full year, so it's not a full FTE. So there's support staff, teacher staff, as well as additional dollars to their budget, and that ends up being about $280,000 at this particular moment in time. And so the net result is about a $340,000 decrease into our budget. And so when you look at the fact that we had anticipated spending $730,000 in reserves from our previous spring budget, and look at this, then it's an increase to the amount that we would need to use from our reserves. And that information will come in our at the end of the month. So you'll get more information with regards to the impact on the reserves based on our budget update. But this is kind of the overall synopsis of what we're facing as we prepare the budget for this upcoming year. So, or for this upcoming end of November meeting. Yeah, so I think that's everything that I wanted to say. Is there any questions in relation to this budget?
Trustee McKee?
Two things kind of sort of caught my attention, that transition funding, which is up in the first line, a one-time grant. I was wondering, so I asked Mr. Perry what the effect would be for next year, and he can expand upon that, but he said the funding framework will be changed, and we will probably receive some funding, and it won't be called a transitional funding, but it will be present in some other a category in the budget. And the bottom one is the very bottom there, this insurance increases. Again, I think Mr. Perry said that was a 272% increase, which to me is like a tremendous increase. I know my personal insurance is going up by about, for my vehicles, about 10 or 15%. But when you have an increase of 272%, that is a large increase. And Mr. Perry has given you indications of why that is, and it's simply something we will need to just accept for this year.
I'll just respond to that just a little bit, just to give more clarification to maybe those who don't know. The provincial government, or Alberta Education, has asked a committee to go through and review the entire funding framework. And so that's ongoing right now. So come March, the budget that we will receive, the way that we receive our funding will look significantly different. At least that's what they've led us to believe. They're looking at an overhaul of the funding framework. The indication is that there's no additional funding that will be provided. It'll just be how it's allocated. And of course, when you do that, there's winners and losers, and we don't have any indication as to where we will stand in that process. So that's a wait and see until March and the March budget update. So this budget analysis is strictly based on the October 24th analysis that they provided, the announcement that was made, and looking at what we had budgeted and where that leaves us. So again, there's many jurisdictions out there that were not as fortunate as us because we had increased enrollment. We had the ability, we had already made decisions based on the enrollment in the spring as to how we would spend the funding. We received additional students, which allows us to offset some of the funding that was removed, as well as some of the additional costs. Not entirely, but in our case, we would be in a better scenario than I would think many other jurisdictions out there. So we're fortunate that way. And the insurance is what the insurance is. I don't have any control over that, but that's the information that we have, and it's just based on the paid loss ratio for the group of 40 boards that are together on the ASB program. And we will have more discussion about this as time goes on.
Trustee Toon?
Thank you, Chair. Really, thank you for this is great information to have and putting it all together. Really disappointed in the numbers seen from the insurance side of things. I know a lot of it is all out of control, as we're the group of 41 part of ASB. I know you've attended meetings and webinars about the issues that have been happening with ASB. Has there been any indication on potential solutions going forward, or any type of relief for the boards in the group that are experiencing? Because we're in the same boat as everyone else with the almost 300% increases, as I've heard from other boards.
Yeah, so there are ongoing discussions around what the options are, even to the point where, you know, maybe the group is dissolved. I mean, that would be the extreme case, but some of the options are being debated. Nothing's official, and all this information would come out to the jurisdictions because we're all member boards. So any changes to the program would be voted on by the members. And so that's why I say more information will come, but certainly the board, the ASB board, has met and discussed their strategic plan just recently, and have put together some options that may be available that they will be discussing with member boards as we go forward. So.
Trustee Toon?
Thank you for that. To that end, I appreciate the information. I think that it's important for us to, I'd call for a motion arising that the board send a letter to ASB and ASBA expressing our dissatisfaction with the lack of foresight that has happened with this. Surely, a lot of these fires and incidents that we're talking about happened multiple years ago, and that the board advocate for increased transparency in the situations on what's going on. They might have known some information beforehand that could have helped us in mitigation and planning and to plan for these things going forward. So I think it's important that we as a member board share that we're not the only ones struggling, but we need to share that we need more upfront information and maybe express our concerns of what's going forward, because dissolving it doesn't mitigate the situation, because then you're talking a year or multiple years out from that happening, so it doesn't alleviate the situation currently.
Mr. Toon, are you making a motion then?
Yes, I would. That the Board of Trustees write a letter to ASB and ASBA as the sponsor. It's at arm's length, but sponsored through ASBA. Sharing our challenge and struggles with the process of the information coming forward at such a late time. Not something that could be drafted by the chair and superintendent.
So you're at the motion, that's the motion you're making, then you're asking for us to draft a letter?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mr. Toon made a motion. Any discussion around the motion? Mr. McKee? There you go.
I thank you, Mr. Toon, for that. I think that's a good idea.
Trustee Yeagas?
I concur on that, and I also think it's important that they understand that as a rural board, this does put us into a conflict with funding, so we need to let that know, and it's a good advocacy point for them.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Toon, do you want to close?
Yes, thank you. I think with the current economic climate and the concerns we have in the province and the uncertainty with the review of the funding framework, we need to be concerned as always about every dollar that we're stewards over. And I think that's important that we share those concerns going forward with those groups that help govern over those external things that are out of our control.
Thank you. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Nikki, did you get the motion okay? Thank you. Alrighty, thank you, Jeff, for the budget update. Now moving on to E3, student engagement. In response to the November 14th, 2018 motion 18-5053, Trustee McKee moved that the Board of Trustees create a student enrollment ad hoc committee to engage community conversations and student engagement and enrollment to commence November 14th or formative a committee until September 2019. Daryl Seguin, Superintendent, will review the student engagement activities and timeline summary with the Board of Trustees.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to bring this motion, I guess, to a formal closure, although the activities and initiatives will certainly be ongoing, but it's been a fruitful activity that we've engaged in. So back in the fall of 2017 to about early into the 2018 school year, we were conducting an internal assessment on how many students we were aware of and getting an idea of how many students that were living within our boundaries were receiving either home education through a different provider than Livingston Range or through Christian-based education programs outside of our school jurisdiction boundaries. And based on that information, we felt that the numbers were significant, and we wanted to be able to address this and see what we can do to win back these students. In May of 2018, you can see on the chart there on the summary, we designated a home education principal for LRSD. And in the fall of 2018, we started providing more robust services for our home education students. And so it was a much more coordinated way by having a divisional principal over the home education program. In the past, it was every school principal had one or two students that they would work with through home education, and it was mostly through ADLC courses. And so by adding a home education principal, we were able to have a more coordinated divisional kind of direction and understanding, and yeah, just a more robust kind of service in this area. So right away, we started with 13 LRSD home education students and 15 teacher-directed. So home education would be those parents directly involved in overseeing the program. We would do our responsibilities in that area and check in, throughout the year and provide support as needed with supplies or other materials. The teacher-directed ones were really, we had a teacher within the jurisdiction that was responsible still for the program, for delivering, for assessing, and that sort of thing, much like they would be in a regular classroom, except at a distance. So in January 2019 is when this motion first came about with Trustee McKee, and the board supported this committee to be enacted and active until September 2019. January through April, we did a number of things. We implemented exit surveys to try and find out why students were leaving our jurisdiction. Was it that their families were moving for work? Was it something to do with the programming that we were offering in our schools, or were there other reasons? So we tried to gather information from those departing Livingston Range and just see if there were any issues in there that we could address. We also connected with other school divisions, so Prairie Rose School Division, Wolf Creek School Division, and to talk about what they're doing. They have faced some similar challenges around offering the breadth of programming and trying to meet the needs of home education students within their boundaries as well. At the end of January, there was a presentation to the Board of Trustees, and from there we decided that we would embark on some community engagement conversations. So through the month of March, we were in Fort Macleod, Pincher Creek, and in Nanton. We invited parents to come and to meet with us and to talk about what they would like to see, how we could support them, and how we could re-engage them into our school division. So trustees and senior management attended those evenings and afternoon discussions, gathered information, came back and had more of a conversation at one of our meeting of the whole at the end of March. And from there, we decided that we would move ahead in the spring with a media strategy, create brochures, get our name out there, get our programs out there, what services we can offer. And I think along with that, our school principals, school administration tried really hard to provide welcoming, caring, safe, respectful learning environments, and our results in that area are continually increasing, which is nice to see. Currently sitting at 89% satisfaction. In September, we added a full-time teacher for teacher-directed programming, and who is now handling 8 full-time students and another 10 part-time teacher-directed. The biggest increase that we've seen has been an almost doubling of our home education students. So we went from 13 last school year to 25 this year. And overall, in terms of student engagement, I think these efforts are working. I put in here LRSD increases by 67 FTE. I see Jeff's latest numbers there. I think we're 81.75. So we might have to adjust that a little bit. When you think of actual student bodies, because there are many ECS students in there, the number of new students or increase in students to LRSD is probably over 100, maybe even over 115. There were 74 kindergarten students alone that were an increase, so that's great to have those young ones starting with us. I wouldn't attribute that this initiative is responsible for all of that, but I think certainly for a part of that. And I think with our ongoing efforts, something I didn't include in here, but that also I think would be very important to think about in terms of student engagement is our Regional Council of Student Leaders and the direction they're going right now, involving those student leaders in conversations divisionally and then back at their school with their administration on how they can make their schools become better places for kids to learn and to create that school culture that we want to see in every school. So right now, I know that in talking with Jackie Kark, the home education principal, she is looking at exploring some additional programming. We have phys ed programs running. She's looking at expanding that to other communities. We have some field trips that are scheduled to take place that she's exploring with the home education parents, and possibly adding another activity, whether it's science or something else, for the parents to be able to participate in with us to try and increase and have a more robust home education program in LRSD. So that's a quick summary of the activities that have taken place. Are there any questions?
Trustee Poitras?
With the further offering of science and some of these field trips, I know that in homeschool phys ed, there are students that are with Livingston Range and also other homeschool students to keep that connection and see if we can bring them into our division. Is that something that will also happen with the field trips, or will that be exclusively to our homeschool education students?
No, right now we are operating, I guess, under a similar philosophy. We believe that we have great things to offer, and we're inviting those that are participating that aren't registered with LRSD currently, so for phys ed, to take part in the field trips and the other activities as well. And we believe that that will continue to build relationships and help them understand that we're serious about providing education for all of our students that live within our boundaries, and we just need to have further conversation about what that is and what it looks like and how we can provide that service for them.
Trustee Long?
Mr. Sieg, when you said that our home education students doubled to 25, was the increase students that weren't in Livingston School Division at all? Or did the increase come students that were in our schools, and then because we have such a great program, they decided to homeschool?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have those exact numbers for you, but I know that I was asking Mrs. Kark about that exact question as they were joining, and I know that several were not with us last year. So they were with another home education provider and have chosen to come and be part of us this year. A lot of that has been the word of mouth and the opportunities that they've had to participate alongside our home education students last year. And so while I don't have exact numbers, I can tell you that I believe the majority of them have been from outside of LRSD. Now, there's always, you know, those that are within our schools right now, but for whatever reason, maybe home education is, you know, the right fit at that particular time. And so it's nice to see that we have now got that service that we can also help find the right program for students and their families depending on different circumstances in their lives. And whereas in the past, it was really, we can sign you up for ADLC, but you're on your own. Right now, we're showing that we can support you in a better way.
Trustee Yeages?
I know I know the inquiry came to you through one of these. A parent was saying that they wanted to know, or they were talking about taking, they are presently in the school division, but they wanted to travel and doing the homeschooling through traveling. You said within the division, but how, have you had a lot of inquiries on this, and how much are you going for? Because I think there are parents who would like to travel and do the homeschooling within the, with us.
We did hear that in particular from one or two communities as we were doing those engagement sessions. Some parents wanted a little more flexibility, I guess, and it was hard for them to be able to travel and to explore the world like they wanted to with the kids at the age they did, because there's that need to be in school and not miss big chunks of curriculum, right? So although I would say that was an expressed desire at the time, I don't know of any right now out of the 25 that we have that their families are actively traveling outside of the country. But we would certainly be in a much better place now than we were even a year ago to be able to provide that sort of flexibility. We're still, I would say, a little short on the elementary side of things. High school, we've added the enhanced learning model, which is another way that could help with high school kids in their programming, because much of it is available anytime, anywhere online, that they could go in and watch a lesson on a particular topic or a theme, and the teacher can assign assignments that are through an online environment. So I would say at the high school, we're in a much better position to be able to provide that sort of flexibility. At elementary, it's still something that we are continually working at and building our capacity to be able to provide that distance learning type of environment at even a younger age if needed.
Trustee Toon?
Thank you for this. This is amazing to see the increase. I know that I want to pass on, there was a few people who were involved with our homeschooling last year with the increase in supports and that were there, and it helped them transition into being in our schools full time. So they really appreciated that support that they weren't getting from another homeschool provider. They didn't think that there was a way that they could transition back in the school because the support just wasn't there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
I just want to clarify my comment. It wasn't 74. That was from budget. There's 21 additional ECS students from the prior year. So.
Thank you. I just want to say too that I really appreciate that all the committees work in this, and that it's now not just a committee but part of Livingston Range, and this will just continue to move through now as part of who we are and where we want to help our kids, our students. So thank you. I have to apologize. The superintendent report should have been done first, so I'm going to make a little addition to the agenda for E4, superintendent report.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So just to highlight, you've had a chance, this was sent out with the package, but every month I provide a report to the board and then opportunity to ask any questions or add any comments. But I'll just touch base on a few of the highlights here. You can see that I had to change the margins because I still wanted to fit it on one page, so I'll spread it out a little bit for you. But I just have to say that we've got a great group of young teachers that have joined us. We have 18 new teachers to the jurisdiction this year, and every year for the past 3 or 4 years, we've had our new teachers run through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People course, and we expect that they do that because there's benefits to them in their professional life, but also in their personal life. And it's an offering that we're very proud to be able to continue to have for our new teachers to help them work with people and understand how they need to take care of themselves. This year, we opened the session up to others within the jurisdiction that wanted to participate, knowing that we would have 18 of our new teachers there. I thought that there would be a few people that would be interested in join. The next thing I knew, Sandy was telling me, Daryl, we have 35 people registered. When do you want me to set a cap on it? And I said, now. You need to do that now. That's getting to be too large. We might have to run another session. But in the end, we had 34 staff. 18 of those were new teachers to our jurisdiction who completed this professional development opportunity. So there was lots of interest there. And Leanne Watson from Stavely School Principal, she's facilitated it for the last few years, and she did this session as well. I'll jump down a little bit to the leader to leader. You've heard of teacher to teacher, and leader to leader is a similar setup. It's around professional development and mentoring of new administrators and ongoing professional development for our current administrators. So of course, with the recently released and new requirement of the leadership quality standard for principals, this committee, which is consisting of Marnie Davidson, principal at ISS, Craig Freer, assistant principal at Matthew Halton, Tara Tanner, principal at Matthew Halton, and Jolene Becker, principal at AB Daly. They came together with Richard and I, and we met and talked about how, what is it that our administrators need this year from the professional development that takes place in our monthly admin council meetings. And so that group has sketched out every month there is a PD opportunity for a couple of hours during the day, and it's all in line with the leadership quality standard. So there's 9 different components to that leadership quality standard, and we have 10 admin council meetings in the year. So they all took assignments, and they have made a map, I guess, a professional development map of all the activities that will be taking place this year, and they're all aligned with the leadership quality standard. The board and CEO evaluation, those are coming up on our agendas. It's a great opportunity to reflect on all the work that has taken place in the past year, and then to set goals and for growth moving forward. Inspiring Leadership session number 1 took place. We have 18 participants. I think it's from 12 different schools that are participating in that. Could be for informal leadership, professional development, or those that might be aspiring to future school administration roles. And so that was a very good first meeting. The art gala was fantastic. This was our biggest crowd yet. We had a great turnout of parents and other family members supporting our young artists, and so it's a great night of celebration there for sure. I'll jump down. As you know, we have an acting principal at FP Walsh right now, and so spent some time orienting them, although they're familiar with us from being our former director of learning, and Danny Roberts. Stepping back into the principal chair after a few years' absence. Just wanted to go over a few things with him, but I said to him, it's kind of like riding a bike, isn't it? And he said, not really. But he's filling in for us there. We appreciate that. Was able to get out to schools, 17 different schools in the last month. So a lot of time, well, some time on the road. Usually tried to combine 3 or 4 schools in a day. These were opportunities to meet with our school administration to talk about their education plans and to see how division office can help them to be able to achieve that. I've included an article, My Kid is Never in School. That was an article that is the Eye on Education article that I write every 6 or 8 weeks. Next month we've got, well, actually starting tomorrow, but it's after this board meeting, we've got our board retreat. ASBA FGM is coming up. Teacher to Teacher is going to be a focus on literacy and numeracy for our new teachers to LRSD, and then Inspiring Leadership sessions, that should just be 2, will be happening there as well. So is there any questions or comments?
Trustee Yeagas?
I saw your article in the Lethbridge Herald, and I thought it was fantastic. When I saw it at first, I thought, I didn't even see who wrote it, you know, and I started reading it because you hear this comment a lot. And it was a fantastic article, and I'd like to suggest maybe that you put it into the local papers because I think everybody should be reading this article.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to highlight the importance of professional development and the complexities, I guess, of the classroom, and that takes time to keep our staff continually up to date and to work on those strategies to deal with the complexity of the classrooms today. Thank you.
Trustee Long?
I don't recall a superintendent in my 30 years of teaching that did 17 school visits in a month. And I commend you for that because that makes you part of the staff. And that way you can keep touch with everybody. And I think just seeing you there is, that's incredible.
Thank
Great.
you. Yeah, we have a geographic challenge in that we're spread out, and so that prevents me from getting out to the schools as much as I would like to. Right now, I'll be honest, these visits were focused on school administration. So other than a few people, I may not have been seen much by the staff and the students, but that's why I also try to balance that with the different events and Christmas concerts and things like that as well. I would love to spend more time in schools, but yeah, just with the constraints and the geography, it makes it difficult, but I appreciate you noticing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. I'd like to just take 2 seconds right now, and I see we have a new ATA rep here, and would you like to just introduce yourself to the board so that everybody knows who you are? Thank you, Linda. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Now moving on to our action items. F1, advocacy. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees create an advocacy committee consisting of 2 trustees. The chair is the ex officio and superintendent or designate. The purpose of the committee is to target specific areas of need for advocacy and bring information back to the board for approval. Can I get someone to make that motion? Brad? And then I'll turn it over for Brad and Clara.
Thank you very much. Appreciate Trustee Yeagas helping put this motion forward. We've had a lot of discussion lately, including in our evaluation about the importance of advocacy work, and a lot is going on in the province politically, and we need to make sure that we're advocating to getting the message out to both our stakeholders as well as to with the government to let them know of our challenges and our celebrations and things that we need to highlight in our area, because people don't know what they don't know. So it's hard if we're not telling our story as much as we can. I know it's challenging when you meet somebody and they ask, well, what do you do? And they don't understand what the role of a trustee is and what a school board does. So I think it's important for us to increase the work that is going on in that area. And to help facilitate that, it's a lot of information gathering and a lot of correlating of data and things that other jurisdictions are doing. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of good stuff coming from ASBA on that. And so I think that it's important that we have a group that can help focus that and bring that to the board for approval, so we can do things like we did today with sending the letter out. If we had information on things like that might not be on our radar, or that other neighboring boards are bringing up, our zone is a great place to get information from our ASBA zone. And so I think that this is a good opportunity to help facilitate that work with the board.
Thank you. Trustee Yeagas?
I've always promoted advocacy because I think it's important, and one thing we do need is an advocacy plan. I think it's important that we get out there in times when we're struggling with budgets, with finance, with student enrollment. We need to get out there and talk to the people who are, or advocate to the people who are who control a lot of this stuff. And a lot of groups do advocacy, and I think as a board, that should be one of our primary or key concerns. But we need a plan, and we need somebody who can set up the progress for it, or the how we are going to do it. So I really support doing this advocacy plan or advocacy group.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Siegman?
Yeah, I think it's, I know Clara, especially Trustee Agos, you've advocated for an advocacy plan for a number of years, and I think we're in a much better place now to be able to make this a reality with our great communications person that we have in Carly Bond. She's been phenomenal, and I think if we, as a board, can give her the main topics and the talking points, then she can run with it and bring things back to the board. We weren't there a couple of years ago, but we know that as we've met with MLAs and with the minister recently as well, we've always taken those opportunities to advocate for local needs. JT Foster, modernization was the first thing that this board spoke to the minister about when she was here not that long ago. Now we've got other things to include with the ASB, or the revised funding framework. We've spoken in the past with our MLA and with the ministers about having sustainable, predictable funding for rural boards and the transportation challenges that we've met. So it's not that we haven't done it, the advocacy work in the past, but I think we can be in a little better position now to move forward and to develop that. So that's good for bringing that forward. Thank you.
Trustee Poitras?
When I ran to become a trustee a couple of years ago, I didn't realize how much it encompasses. And I think oftentimes when we're at trustee stuff, I'm in the younger group in the room. And now that I understand what a trustee does, I want so much to bring that information forward, because I think there is, like Brad said, people don't know what they don't know. And if we're not going to tell them what we do and help them understand what local governance means to a school division, then who is going to? So I feel so strongly about this. When I saw that it was here, I just thought this is so great. It's something we can move forward with. I think Carly is a great asset to help bring that message so that we can help other people understand what it is that we do and why we are relevant and why it's important to have trustees. So I really support this.
Thank you. I also want to reiterate too, I was at a meeting, my Alberta Southwest Regional Alliance, and I was having a conversation with one of the counselors from Pincher Creek. And I was just asking him that if anything was coming up to share ideas and thoughts. And he said, well, I actually don't really know what you guys do. So right there and then I was like, okay, we need to educate everybody, because some people don't understand what we do. And if we want to stay vital in the education system, then we really need to make sure everybody understands what we do. So I agree that this is a very crucial point that we start this and get the ball rolling. So thank you. Mr. Burdette?
Yes, I also agree. I think, we've talked about advocacy and talking to people and everything for years, but I think forming a committee, actually what you prioritize gets done. And so this will prioritize that, and we'll be able to move forward with actually getting it done instead of just saying we should.
Mr. McKee? Trustee McKee?
I would also concur. There's never a shortage on items that you can advocate for. I think in the changing climate that's going on, I think you'll have to set your priorities, and I think that when you start promoting what changes you'd like to see, I think you'll find out that that the response will be very fulfilling for ourselves and also for the people that you talk to.
Thank you. And as you'll see further on in our trustee self-evaluation, this is one of our key areas of emphasis. And so having the committee and setting it up and moving us forward will be really beneficial. So thank you again. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Trustee Toon, do you want to close?
Thank you. Appreciate all the words everyone's expressed and the support for this. I know that's important work and appreciate the work that's currently being done. When we met with the Minister of Education and along with our MLA, we had amazing handouts to give out, and that's all done through the great work that our communications coordinator does and our central office staff. And we need to make sure that we are doing more to share that work that has already been done with the greater public, whether it be our municipal counterparts, our locally elected officials, and with our stakeholders. So as we said, a lot of the stuff's already there. We just need to be focused and pull it together and look forward to the great work that this group can do. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Now on to F2, our superintendent evaluation. On October 23rd, 2019, Mr. Jim Gibbons from Alberta School Boards Association led the Board of Trustees through an annual evaluation of the superintendent of schools. Mr. Seguin, the Board of Trustees will review the evaluation and request approval for the superintendent's evaluation. Recommendation that the board approve the superintendent evaluation report as developed during the evaluation workshop on October 23rd, 2019, as an accurate accounting of the superintendent's performance for the period of September 1st, 2018 to August 31st, 2019. And further, that the board authorize the chair to make any required technical edits and to sign the report on the board's behalf. Can I get someone to make that motion? Clara? Trustee Yeagas? Open it up for discussion. The room is quiet. Okay. Trustee McKee?
I would certainly like to thank Superintendent Mr. Seguin there. The evaluation process was very involved, and I really appreciate the fact that you went through and you prepared such intensive notes for all the categories that you had been working on. I was deeply impressed by that, and I thank you for all your work that you went in filling out the forms themselves for your evaluation.
Trustee Yeagas?
I think one of the things we should maybe is reiterate the goals and the conclusion that was come to in this report, because I think that's important. I don't, everybody could read it, but I'd like to make sure that everybody looks at it. And first of all, our superintendent has 5 goals. We gave him a lot of goals to work on this year, or areas of emphasis, and that's his work-life balance. So we give him a lot of work, but we tell him he better make sure he takes care of his personal life too. Stakeholder input and communications regarding division operations, policy support, AP development reflecting new legislation, review of emergency preparedness plan, and support and resources for priority areas that lead to student success. Now, they sound general, but they include a lot of things. But this is what we came up with as a board for our superintendent. The board appreciates the leadership of our superintendent over the last school year. Mr. Seguin is approachable, a good communicator, and leads by example. He is willing to listen carefully to concerns and is thoughtful and prompt in his response. He is always looking for innovative ways to improve student learning and support staff and administrators in the growth and professional development. We are fortunate to have an individual of such integrity and focus on our student success as our superintendent. And I think that just says basically what came out of his report and everything else. It was a good report. And you should just add, next year this whole process will be changing to somewhat because there is new things put in the Education Act.
Thank you, Trustee Yegus. Any other questions or comments? I again want to thank Daryl for everything he did for that report. It was great to be able to read through it and look back on the year and see everything that has been accomplished and where we are today. So thank you again. Trustee Long?
While we're public, good time to say that there'd be very few administrators, superintendents who would have the patience, the empathy, and the understanding to work so well with 7 trustees that are fairly strong-willed. And I really appreciate it. Make that public.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Some of the motion, well, all in favor? Passed. Moving on to the Board of Trustees self-evaluation. Again, Mr. Jim Gibson's led us on this one too, so we'll just go over our areas of emphasis, 2019-20, 2020. Our areas of emphasis are review board policies in light of the new Education Act and regulations, continue to review the division's vision, mission, and core values, advocacy goals outline our work for the year, review budget financial considerations in alignment with the new funding manual. Recommendation that the board approve the board self-evaluation report is developed at the facilitated workshop on October 23rd, 2019, and that the board chair be authorized to monitor the areas of emphasis and suggestions agreed to and bring items forward for the board consideration as deemed appropriate. Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Poitras? Open it up for discussion. Anybody have anything to say? Trustee Kuhn?
Just want to thank everyone for all the input. It was a good, busy day, but again, with along with our superintendent evaluation, it was great to review where we've been and look to the future on where we need to go. And everyone was great, and we all got our homework done, and we showed up on time, and we were able to get a lot done. So I appreciate everybody's hard work through the process.
Thank you. I also appreciate all the work that everybody has put into the year. I think that starting off as a new board, we've really come together to work well together, and I look forward to our next couple years together too. So thank you, everybody. Can I get motions on the floor? All in favor? Passed. Oh, Trustee Thune?
Chair, just in consideration of the motion we made previously about our advocacy committee, I'm wondering if we could place the selection of said individuals at the end of our agenda. With what we have coming up in meetings in Edmonton, I think it'd be really advantageous to have those committee members in place so they can start to bring forward items and be prepared for our meeting in December.
So you want to put it right at the end of the agenda, like a G5?
If we could, that would give everyone enough time during the meeting to contemplate putting their name forward for that.
Is everyone okay with that? Great, thank you. We'll do that then. Advocacy committee. Will we need to, just a clarification question. Are we going to have names put forward, or will we need a ballot?
Yes, we have to use a ballot for when we do any elections, yes.
Yeah. So we need 2 ballot counters too. So can I assign Mr. Perry and Mr. Kuzik?
Aside, yeah, we'd probably have to have a motion to appoint them for the.
Can I get so Brad, are you going to make a motion? Mr. Toon, are you making a motion?
I could make a motion to appoint them as balloting committee.
All in favor? Thank you. Nikki, you got that okay? Great, thank you. Thanks for volunteering. So that was G5, just to make sure everybody has that. All right, thank you. Sorry, and now we're on to F4, Wisdom and Guidance Council update. So this is the recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the changes to Board Policy 10, Board Representation regarding the LRSD number 6. We should take number 68 out. Wisdom and Guidance Council, purpose as presented. Can I get someone to make that motion? Mr. McKee? Mr. McKee, would you like to speak to that?
The Wisdom and Guidance Council has been around for quite a few years now. And the new purpose that is presented more, it gives some clarification to the to the Wisdom and Guidance Council. What was previously there was gave a good indication of what was required, but I think what's been presented in front of you now gives you a better understanding, and it also explains in somewhat greater detail of the purpose of the Wisdom and Guidance Council.
Trustee Poitras?
It's really important in our division where we have so many Indigenous students coming from different reserves, that we have a clear understanding of the Indigenous ways of knowing and learning and what it is that elders, students, and parents are looking for when they bring their kids to our schools. With the Wisdom and Guidance Council, this shows that that is a place where 2 trustees are going to specifically hear those things and listen to what the parents, students, and elders sitting on that council have to say, their needs, their desires, what they feel could be improved, and we can bring that perspective back here so that it's reflected on our board, as we want all students to be represented here. So I think adding this clarification really helps to take the Wisdom and Guidance Council from just attending those council meetings to getting that deeper knowledge and understanding by spending time on reserves, which we are able to do, and with the elders in the schools. It's really an important piece, and this clarifies that. So it was very important that this was done, and I'm happy with the wording and how it came out. So,
Trustee Yegas?
I totally agree with what was said in terms of the additions to it, but if you read it, there is some problem with the purpose in terms of the grammatical structure of it. So if this is going to go in there, I think we need to look at it. It says, I'm going to just go down to it, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit way of knowing, and being to support the structures. And that doesn't really make sense. So I don't know how originally it was supposed to be put.
Yeah.
So I think we better change that before we put it into policy.
that should say, and Inuit ways of knowing and learning, not being, of knowing and learning. And to support the structures and processes. Yeah.
Should it be for Livingston Range or of the?
I don't know if anybody else had written this down. I haven't got my notes with me right now, so
Greg, you have to wait till we pass this motion.
are you okay, Greg? Madam Chair, maybe we should take a short break.
Yeah,
this
why don't we
point.
just call a 5-minute health break, and we'll just make sure, we'll see if we can find the exact wording for this that was to come forward. So everybody just take 5 minutes, please. Okay, calling us back to order 221. Over our break, we were able to clarify the wording Mrs. Poitras or Trustee Poitras, would you like to read that to us now?
Oh, I'd love to. So the purpose for the Wisdom and Guidance Council is to support, enhance, and increase school success of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit learners in Livingston Range School Division. The Wisdom and Guidance Council will represent and provide authentic voice for the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit ways of knowing, of being, and of current perspectives from both Kainai and Piikani to support the structures and processes of the Livingston Range School Division.
Thank you. Trustee Yegus, do you want to continue on with any other changes? That was it? Trustee Poitras, did you have anything else you'd like to say? Oh, I thought you were asking to talk.
No,
Sorry.
no, I think the Wisdom and Guidance Council is very important, and I'm glad that we're making these changes to clarify for any future trustees that will sit on this council.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Yegus?
Was this passed at the last board meeting?
No, it was tabled.
Okay, so we should have a motion then to pass this so we could put this into our policy, the changes?
Yeah, it was moved by John. I made the motion earlier and then we had the discussion and now we're just,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't read the second page. Okay,
That's okay.
sorry. Yep.
Mr. McKee, would you like to close? Trustee McKee?
Well, thank you very much for taking the break there and further clarifying that statement. It does make a lot clearer. A statement as it is formed now, and I appreciate Trustee Long's a need for clarification in that in the purpose statement. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you. So we're going to approve the motion as amended. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Moving on to F5, Board Policies. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve changing the School Act to Education Act and remove number 68 from all board policies. Can I get someone to make that motion? Clara Yeagan, or Miss? Trustee Yegas. Trustee Yegas, would you like to speak on?
Yes, this is just a housekeeping change with the change from to the new Education Act, and we don't really have to remove the number 68, I've been told, but I think it just makes things a little easier. So I just like a blanket motion to change all of these throughout all of the policies whenever we come across them. Also, I would like to, I didn't include this in there, but there's going to be sections from that are referred to as in the School Act that we have to change it to where it refers to it in the Education Act. So any of the sections in there will be, I would like to change too as we go through them. It's going to be pretty tedious task to go right now through each of them.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Passed. Moving on to Board Policy 4, Role of the Trustee. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the changes made to Board Policy 4, Role of the Trustee as presented or amended. Can I get someone to make that motion? Mr. Long? Would you like to speak to it, Mr. Long?
I just wonder if we shouldn't take a minute, I don't know if we have time, and actually read it.
Trustee Yegas?
We looked at it, we've already looked at the role of the trustee and talked about the changes to it when we were reviewing this policy.
The summarized changes are on your board agenda. Proposed updates to Policy 4, Under specific responsibilities, add the trustee of a board as a partner in education has responsibility to add section 33 of the Education Act, add follow board-approved process for engaging parent, student in the community in matters related to education such as attending, change 0-91 of the School Act to 85-96 of the Education Act, remove completely in 9A, change the legal reference from section 60 to School Act sections 33, 85-91 Education Act, and then reviewed November 13th, 2019, add revised date October 2019. Those were the proposed changes that we reviewed and looked at earlier. Trustee Toon?
Thank you. One of the things you highlighted there was the reviewed November 13th. That was when it was reviewed earlier in our committee of the whole meeting. And I think it's important to track that going forward in our policies. Not only at the bottom to have the date it was last revised, but a lot of times when you look at the policy, you ask yourself how long it's been since it's been looked at. So it's important for us to keep track of that, and I appreciate the committee coming up with that great idea.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Alrighty, going on to Board Policy 9, Committees of the Board, and 10 Board Representatives.
What's this?
I don't think I have the motion, Daryl.
Which one are you doing?
The board, oh, okay. We're doing the,
Committee of the Whole?
sorry, just 9 and 10?
Yeah.
I think I have an old agenda. All right, so we'll just do, sorry, I just need to get my, that the Board of Trustees approve changes made to Board Policy 9 and 10.
I'll move that.
Clara. Thank you. Trustee Yegas, did you want to speak to it?
Yep. On policy 9, I don't, is it up here now? Okay. All the changes are done in red that we have made. And one of the changes that we did is that all committees are to report to the board following each meeting. And the purpose of this is we don't have a lot of this information sent to us or done to us within, within our board meetings. So if a report is sent in after the meeting, and I'm going to say that this should be done from every committee, that if they have a meeting, they send it in so the board knows what the committees are doing. And I'm going to include the negotiation committee on that one too. Okay, because I think a lot of times, I mean, remember, if it's something that we can't talk about, I mean, obviously, but just an outline of what is done. And down a little bit says, a record of decisions will be kept for each committee meeting and will be reported as at a regular board meeting as part of the consent agenda. So this will be, you'll be sending it in when Nikki sends out the report that we got to send them in. So I guess we all have to get on to our, put a little time aside to get these done. And the next change that was made, I don't know if there were any other changes. I'm just going down here because I don't think so. Page 7, okay. Yeah, the only other changes would be when we're changing this or when we approve this. I haven't found any other changes on there. Okay. I'm just going to ask, are our working copies available to all board members or just, so if you want to go into the Google Docs,
Into your shared drive.
into shared drive, you will find the working copy of it. And anytime, I know sometimes when you can't sleep at night, you want to get up and you want to look through our changes and our policies, we invite you to do so. Okay, and the next one is Board representatives, number 10. Oh, did we have that on? Have you got it up?
Yep.
Okay, for some reason I don't have that on here. I don't have it on my, I can't find it. You don't have the red on there. So, the board representatives, that's policy 10. Representatives are report to the board following each meeting. Reports will be part of the consent agenda. And once again, just to reiterate what we said in the other one. Okay, do you want to go down? And this is the one, okay, the Alberta Southwest, we changed this. 1 trustees as a sign per meeting. Take out the 1 after assigned meeting. Okay, all trustees as alternatives. And I'm just going to say what we're doing right now, and then, did you want to add to this, Lori? Sorry.
Sorry, I just want to say, didn't we say as per ward? Were we determining like where the meetings were held? Was it within the
Oh,
wards?
yeah, we did. Yeah,
It says it further down.
yeah, it does. The meetings, it's as called by Alberta Southwest Regional, one of the trustees in the ward where the meeting is held is given first preference to attend on behalf of the board. If a trustee from the ward where the meeting is held is not available to attend, the board will assign another trustee to attend. And I could just mention that when the trustees do, I know Lacey went to the other one, they're very, oh, you didn't? Oh, oh, you went, okay.
I went to the last one.
Oh, just you? Because she asked for permission and you had it.
Lacey did not attend.
Okay, anyhow, usually more than one can go, but you can't have too many going because they supply their supper. And until this time, until we can make other arrangements, I'll keep getting the messages from Southwest and then just pass them on to whoever it is. So they'll have to tell me when the meetings, they always send out the minutes and you get the bulletin. Okay, going down, the wisdom and guide, which is what we just talked about. And we're gonna have to change that as we mentioned. If you keep going down, I don't think there was any other changes.
Trustee Toon?
Sorry, just on that last one, I thought we had 1 trustee would be assigned as contact. Did we not have on that? So it was clear that 1 person would be assigned to
Okay,
as the
then we
contact?
could put, yeah. Oh, the board will assign another trustee to attend, and then if we want to just add, 1 trustee will be assigned as contact.
Because that way we can do that during our organizational meeting and it makes it easier for
Yeah.
Alberta Southwest to
Yes.
facilitate the information coming to us.
Yes, because we are invited representatives, we don't, yeah.
Absolutely. I had a conversation with Bev, and she's also gonna, I asked her since I was a chair if she could just CC me in on the emails too. So now it'll be yourself and me as
Okay.
board chair, just so that we both have, know where everything, who's going and what's happening, so.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all we completed. That took us a very long time to do.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Passed. Thank you to the policy committee for all their hard work. And I know there's still lots more to come.
And Madam Chair, the next meeting is on December the 9th for the policy committee.
Okay, thank you. F6, meeting of the whole meeting date. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve moving the January 22nd, 2019 meeting of the whole meeting to January 29th, 2019 to facilitate the facilitator's schedule. Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Poitras? Trustee Poitras, did, Mr. Sequin, did you want to speak to it, or?
It's just simply, we had talked about using the facilitators, David George and Cal Hauserman, and to accommodate their schedule because one of them had a conflict on January 22nd. They did ask, made a request if they could come and meet with the board on January 29th instead of the 22nd. So it's simply just a 1 week later. We were hoping that with enough advance notice that this wouldn't be an issue to change that date.
And this has to do with our board retreat. Yeah. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Passed, thank you. Professional learning, recommendation. Was there any trustee seeking approval to attend any professional development? Trustee Yegus?
I had asked for this one that we put my name and Jim's name
Right.
as this, and I'm sorry wasn't able to send this out till last night, but they have all of the ones that I could find on there right now.
Great. Thank you. So we'll make that recommended change to Jim and Clara. Sorry, Trustee Yegus and Trustee Burdette. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to F8, transfer of land. Jeff, do you have the motion?
Yeah, I think Nikki can bring that up. So really, this is a short item. The board has discussed and debated this in the past, and so there's no change to the anticipation of transferring land in the town of Clarisholm over to the town of Clarisholm for the early learning or the childcare area. What we found is that the motions that we passed historically didn't have sufficient information to provide the Minister of Education the ability to give an approval. So the motion has changed, or we're bringing the motion back again, which reads, and I'm actually going to change it just a little bit, Nikki, that the Board of Trustees transfer ownership of a portion of land located on West Meadow Elementary School grounds, Plan 861-0193, Lot 2, Block 1, approximately 39.39 hectares on 5613th 8th Street West to the town of Clarisholm for $1, and then behind that we'll say subject to minister approval. And then the town of Clarisholm will be paying for all costs related to the transfer documents and legal fees subject to minister. You don't have to have that. If the town of Clarisholm ceases to use the above named transferred land for providing childcare services, the above named land will be transferred back to the Livingston Range School Division, and you could probably take number 68 out of there for the sum of $1. And the only other change I might make is early learning services, providing early learning services, which would also be childcare and early learning services. Sorry. Makes it a little bit more flexible. Okay. Any questions on the request? Someone would have to make the motion, I guess.
Okay, Mr. Burdette. Trustee Toon, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I was just putting out my hand for make the motion.
Oh. All right, any questions or comments? Trustee McKee?
It's a good thing that you got that clarification, because as I understand it, the tenders have gone out for that project. I don't know if they've been received yet, but the project is certainly getting underway, and that's good to see for the town of Clarisholm.
Yeah, their tenders would be subject to ministerial approval as well.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Passed. Thank you. All right, we're just cooking right along here. On to Success for All Learners. Is that right?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may we take our break now, seeing that it's a perfect time for it,
Sure.
before our Success for All Learners, all our presentations are made? Because we're up.
We are ahead of schedule a little bit, so we can take a 10-minute break here if you wanted. Last time was just for clarification on the wording. So, okay, we'll take a 10-minute break because Clara didn't get one. Thank you, everyone. And I call us back to order, please. 12:53. Calling us to order. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a presentation on our accountability pillar from Mr. Chad Kuzik.
Thank you very much. As Nikki is getting this up on the screen here, I just wanted to share that we've been looking at this ever since we got it, and I've had the opportunity to talk to most of the principals of the division about the data that's there and their plans, and so I'm going to walk you through this and try to be as broad but as specific as possible. So the first things first, if Nikki goes down the first slide, as we know, there's 7 subjectable measures and 9 objective measures, so qualitative versus quantitative. So some of those are surveys and the qualitative of nature, and the other ones are quantitative, where it's actual hard numbers and says exactly what's there. I tried to keep this as close to as Danny's presentation as possible, but I may have strayed a couple parts to kind of identify some of the spots where we needed a little more focus and some understanding. So if we click on the next slide, I put the 2 up side by side. So that's last year's accountability pillar, and the one on the right is this year's. And you can start to see color, and as Daryl's mentioned before, you just jump at that red spot. And we've already had conversations about that, and I'll talk about that a little more, but I'd like to make you look at the blue spot as well. That safe and caring jumped up. We had increases there. Our citizenship remained high. There's lots of stuff in here, and some of the stuff maintained or stayed the same. And so there's some stuff that we need some work on. There's some stuff that we did excellent, and there's some stuff that will continue to grow on. So that's the general part. What I'm going to do is break each one of these down a little bit and tell you how we got here. So if we click on the next slide, so here's the good. Again, safe and caring, very high, and we improved in this part, and it was excellent. This is a survey by the parents. Education quality, again, was high. It was maintained, and it was good, and that was excellent. Work preparation, again, we scored high. This is all divisional data. We maintained that high level, and that was overall we're pretty good there. Citizenship, we were very high, and we improved, and overall we're excellent on that. So, yes.
I'm sorry, it's always me.
Can you speak into your mic, please, Trustee Poitras?
I'm sorry, it's always me with the questions. How is this gathered? Is it through a survey?
Yes, there's a survey.
And do you know how many people took it? And
I
who
do,
they
and
were?
I have that at the end just for
me?
requested on me, and
Okay.
I did the best I could with that there.
Okay.
They break it down to each question how many people did,
Okay.
and so I kind of took the one that was the most average of that, because sometimes some people didn't answer some questions, but I can give you a general idea of how many
That's
people
all I
answered.
need
So
is a
you
general.
bet.
Thanks, Chad.
You bet. Parental involvement, that's part of it. It was high, maintained was good. School improvement was high, maintained, and it was good. Some of the stuff we're going to take a look at is dropout rate. That's the one that it was intermediate, but we declined. That's the red you see in that first part. And we had some discussions about that one where we had a lot of students leave our division for no reason of our own. Approximately 35% of that number is students that left. We also had a lower number of our colony schools. I found out that they predict that they say you had so many students that aren't going to be in grade 10. We know that was in there. It shouldn't have been counted in that. And that's, but that was another issue. They predicted what we might have as kids that might drop out, and that was not represented in this anyways. We had mostly was the kids that moved away is what we found, and our outreach schools as well. Yep.
I'll just maybe add to this as well, and Chad can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe how this is calculated, this category, is that once a student enters grade 10 with us, If they don't graduate, then it's recorded on here. So that means that if we have students that started grade 10 in Livingston Range but moved out of province or out of country, then they show up in this result as not graduated, not completed high school. Okay? So we did have an unusual number of students in that category. Also, if we had say, Chad made reference to a Hutterite student, if we had students enter a grade 10 course, even if it was just one course, we want to celebrate that, right? But they may not go on and complete their high school diploma. So those two areas would be taken into account as well, right?
Thank you, Daryl, for clarifying. Yep, that's absolutely right.
Daryl said move out of country. What about the international student? Because they would register in a course and,
We initially thought that, but no, they're not put in this calculation at all.
They have a
They're only-
different code that they're identified by, and so they take that into consideration for them.
And there was FACES as well that was graduating on time. We had that last year, and we resolved that as well, so.
I just wanted to comment on that. That is, it's too bad that everything is recorded that way because it makes it seem actually worse than what it is, because I think actually we do well in that area, but it doesn't show that.
Yeah.
So, Trustee Poitras, did you have a comment?
With tracking the students that are leaving our school more closely with those exit interviews, is this something that we are in control of and that we can monitor more closely so we know, have a better accurate number? Or is this something that's done on a provincial level and we can have our own accurate number, but this is how it will reflect always?
I looked at every single person that was on that list
Okay.
and phoned, and majority of it, I know where they
You know
went
where
and
they went.
why, and
Okay.
use the exit surveys that we'll be getting more of to have a clear understanding of what that is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So PAT, again, we're low, but we maintained where we were last year. Oh, and Greg has a question. Right, Greg?
Thank you. So just for my own clarification, our dropout rate is intermediate. But come the next September, our enrollment's not down. So if we have a third of those students leaving Livingston, we also have just as many moving back into the area, right?
I'd have to look specifically at that number, but I'll say if you're meaning that some of those students, you mean they're moving in from other places to
Yes.
here? I'd have to go look at that, Craig. I'm not quite
just
sure.
wondering.
Our enrollments numbers are up, and yes, I guess you could look at it that way, yes. But I'm not sure how much is going to affect the high schools. I don't know if they're all coming from high schools, for elementary. Those are
Right.
things to look at, right?
So I shouldn't jump to that conclusion.
Not yet, and that's a good thing to look at, and I'm going to take a look at that, actually, to see if it balances out a bit, those enrollments that came from there that replace some of those students that are moving away, absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. It might not be high school.
Exactly.
Enrollment's up in elementary, but we
Elementary.
lost. Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, into different parts. No, that was a very good question. Moving forward, acceptable standard, again, we're at intermediate. We did decline a little bit in our diploma acceptable standards. And again, it was identified as an issue. And then our participation rate of the diploma was low, and that declined some, and that was determined as issue as well. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see the PAT and how that was broken down. So our ELA, our language arts grade 6 PAT, our acceptable standard was intermediate. It actually improved in language art. It's overall, it's good. So some of the work in literacy and some of those things that schools are doing, we can see that in the grade 6 a bit. The excellence, though, we lost that number of excellence. We didn't have as many students in excellence for that particular exam, and that declined. So some of those students went to acceptable standard, and we have a larger acceptable standard range than excellence in language arts. In math, we have some work to do there where acceptable was low. That was similar to last year, and it continues to be some work we'll be doing. Our excellence, again, in Math 6 was also low and declined, and we'll continue to work towards that. Math 9 continues that same conversation. And so the acceptable is low, declined, and there's somewhat of work to do there as well. In Science 6, we maintained most of our our work there, our students did, and our social six, we actually had some improvements in acceptable range. And it was good, and excellence is, it maintained it and acceptable. Language 9, actually, it's low and it declined a bit with acceptable standard, but we maintained our standard of excellence, which is good to see in grade 9 in language arts. Science 9, that was good to see. We have excellence, very high. That was good, and the acceptable is rate intermediate maintain, and it's close to the provincial average. Social 9 is acceptable, again, intermediate maintain. So social 9, science, ELA, those seem to be moving in the right direction. For our PATs, we need to do some work on the excellence in all of them, but more specifically work in math 6 and math 9. So I dove down into this a little bit to kind of see where our work will be, and some of the work we're doing with Kathy, and some of the work we'll be doing with the schools, and some of the questions I was asking those schools as we work through this is what are our plans moving forward with this together? How can we support? So that's what's for the PAT acceptable standard. Any question on those? Yes.
I just have a question on the math. So you've gone to each school and you find that each school kind of has the same sort of grade 6, grade 9 math issues. And so I'm just asking, all schools have their plans. And so did you find that they need mostly all the same kind of supports, or was it varied throughout the schools?
It's an excellent question. I mean, I just finished my visits yesterday. If I was going to say off the top of my head right now, I would say it's contextual. Not all schools, some schools are starting to move in really interesting directions in all sorts of different PATs. So meaning contextual, meaning each one has something slightly different that they're going to, but there's some common theme. I know Daryl wants to jump on this one, but there is some common themes we see throughout, and some of the work we'll be doing to address those things that are common. You'll see some of that in ISC days, some of the work that Kathy's doing, that we can group together and do some work together to be able to get those broad strokes, but specifically those students in those classes, with those teachers, that's where we want to focus. Kathy right now is working specifically with a grade 9 project to really understand what needs to happen in that particular school, and to take that learning and bring it to the rest. So, Daryl.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit to that. December 2nd, I think it is, Kathy has arranged a meeting with all the grade 9 math teachers, grade 8 math teachers, if they can make it there, as well as an administrator from each of the schools. And we have someone from the assessment branch from Alberta Education coming down to take a deep dive into our data and to kind of give us a picture from their understanding of looking at the data, where we might be able to focus some efforts, and how we might be able to work at improvement in those areas. We also have on that day representatives coming down from Calgary Board of Education, and so these people are experts around the K&E programming. And so one thing that we're understanding better in the last little while is, are we programming appropriately for students in Math 9? In K&E lends itself more easily to be adapted in the humanities areas, but math is very different. And so some of the strategies that we're using may not be the best. And so we're going to be revisiting that with representatives from Calgary Board of Education, and then with our administrators and Math 9 teachers there, just to see about the programming side of things. And is there something that we can learn from what they're doing that we might be able to apply in our schools? Many of the schools that we spoke to during our school visits in the last month, and so Chad and Richard and I would go around and meet with the administrative team, go through their data, go through their school plans, and anyone that had an area of growth identified in their Math 6 or 9, we talked about different strategies. So some are adding extra staff or time, maybe more math time. Some are adding extra staff to allow for small group instruction and to really be able to focus on more individual needs. But there's a variety of ways to address it, depends on the context of the school, but those are some of the things that we're looking at doing in those areas.
Okay, yes.
So thank you for clarifying that. My question is for Math 6 and Math 9. It's very low in the excellence, but the excellence is probably only the top, let's say, 10 or 15%, whereas acceptable in grade 9 would probably be more students. So where would it be more important to make improvement? I mean, I know you want to make improvement overall, but myself, I just might make the assumption that it probably would be more important to make the acceptable better rather than the excellent, although both are important. Am I making a wrong assumption there, or?
That's an excellent comment, and we're gonna all see it in our annual plan, where we want to get to in the measurement. And it's the acceptable standard for a lot of the measures we use to say we want to raise an acceptable standard. But it is all important. We'd also like to raise that standard of excellence. We'd also like to increase the number of students taking diplomas. Those are the things that they'll be in our plan that says specifically what are we going to measure and how are we going to measure it. And that, yeah, the acceptable standard is an important measurement for math, science, all of them. So.
Okay, thank you.
When we're looking at these numbers and we see where we fall, are you noticing that this is a trend provincially? Or is this a problem that we're facing divisionally? Or do you notice that provincially there's a standard that's set and overall no one is hitting it like they used to be?
Well, it's the provincial average, right? So, so that is all
So
of us
we're
together.
below average.
We're below average in some.
In this area? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, Mr. Tu, Trustee Tu.
I think it might be really beneficial with how proactive and the things that you've lined out strategically to look at this over the next short term, that if we could have it on a future agenda in the new year for the board to get an update, if we could have something of this going forward, because you can see that it's a significant area of concern, and that you're going to be putting a lot of effort into solutions to rectify this. So I think it's important that the board were kept aware and not just wait till 6 months or a year from now till the results come back in, that we're there every step of the way to know what's going on with this.
Okay.
Trustee Long?
Yeah, Trustee Toon, I think he's hit the nail on the head. This is really concerning, absolutely. And I know we go through this quite often, but it's doesn't matter how many times we do it. And Mr. Cusack, certainly the demographics of certain communities have an effect on our whole LRSD, correct?
We're all in this together, so
Absolutely.
It's the whole division, so.
Yeah, but I don't know how the other trustees feel. Of course, I want to know if the zone I represent is affecting this negatively. I guess that's where I'm going, and I'm trying to be political.
Yeah, no.
I could maybe jump in a little bit. All of our schools will be discussing, if they haven't already, they should be presenting their accountability pillar results for their individual school at an upcoming school council meeting. I think many have already, but if they haven't already, it should be within the next month here. Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next one, Nikki. So now our diploma, which is a little different than our PATs. We've seen some increases here, which is very positive and very encouraging. We look at our social has jumped up and into that good category, and that's 3-1, 3-2. And acceptable levels in both are high, or intermediate or high. Bio 30, some work to do there, but chemistry was high and it was good. Now both chemistry and physics, they have less number of students. I should make you aware of that. They're taking those courses, but the ones that were there did well. In physics 30, same thing, working through that. English 3-1, that's very good to see, with acceptable being very high. Right. and then excellence is right where it should be. And 30-2, again, we're at the acceptable range with that. So this is different than last year, and as I go through some of this is some success we're seeing in that area. So whereas we saw the other area, some of those reds and concerns, this area now has become rather positive. So yes, that was interesting, and it was the other way around last year. Okay, so yes, Claire.
Didn't any of our students do Math 30?
They didn't have it on there. They did. They didn't record it onto. Let me just double check. But yeah, Math 30. I don't know why it wasn't represented on there. So I'll just go double check that. Why? I'm still not. Yeah, as we follow along with that, recording that, and we did have enough people that took it. So it must. Yeah, I'll need more clarification on that. Why it wasn't used in our ER. Okay. Any other questions on this?
Go ahead.
Okay. Next one. So then we start looking kind of safe and carrying the trend. And as we move forward, you see the trend in both of these starting a steady and a nice increase, whereas 2015, 86, and 2019, we're at 89. So over that time period, we see a steady increase in that, right on the Alberta average. So we're right with that part. Program of study. We're a little bit below provincial average, but again, you see a flat line, an increase in flat line, steady to a high number, right? So that's good to see comparing to some of the questionnaires where we work through that. So next one, again, you see that's a dropout rate we were talking about. Those are the actual numbers that dropped out in the count. Another thing I failed to mention is we're down numbers too. So similar numbers have stayed, but our percentage would drop because the number of students are less than they were in previous years. So that's what they came up to, and Daryl and I are trying to explain some of the estimated attrition that's there. And then you look at the PAT trend, that's what we were talking about before. And so 2015 acceptable standards overall, we were 71%, and 2019 we dropped a little bit, about 1.5%. So some of those reds looked like that way, but then some of and in the end it averages out to about 1.5% decrease in PATs. So, and compared to the provincial average, you can see the provincial average beside it, which is at 73. So, okay, next one. The diploma trend, that's the one I was mentioning. So in 2015, we were at acceptable standard, 71.1%. We're down a little bit from that. But it's above what it was last year, and so you're seeing that take place. That's all the diploma. That's all the diplomas together. Okay, and we have the next one. Again, work preparation and all the work that's been done there. You're starting to see we're up again over 2% going forward with that, and we're below provincial average, but we're close. We're close to provincial average, on par with them. And then citizen trend as well, that we've gone up to 82%, from like almost 4% increase from 2015. Steady climb on citizen and citizenship and all the work that's been doing there, and it's right on par for provincial average as well. So if we go down to the next one, parent involvement, and looking at that survey question as you were, and yeah, we're close to provincial average there as well, and doing well in that regards, up 5% from 2015. So we're just over 5%. School improvement trend, same thing. You like to see these things, and again another increase and a slight decrease, I guess 1%, but overall it's flat. It's pretty steady right there. So that's school improvement. And next one, this is what I was asked for, how many people did this survey. So you can see the number overall. You have 2,000 in 2015, and 2019 we had 1,400, and you can see the bulk of those are students that participated, in parents. We had approximately 204, up from 171 in 2015. So there's a steady increase of parents that are doing it. We just had less students, as you can see, do it. And then teachers, roughly the same year to year, except for 2015, I only have 146. Most of our staff, 221 teachers did it this year. So that's our survey. Yeah, you're welcome. And yes,
That's a significant drop in the number of students. If you look at it traditionally, we're at the about 2,000 mark. Is there a reason why less students were taking it? Was it just stressed less in the schools, or it wasn't, accommodations weren't made for the students to?
so the students, yeah, the percentage, they're roughly the same. 2015, we had less students take it, but that's, the percentage was close, right? So 2015, 79%, 2019, actually 81%. Right, so there was less students. That looks strange, actually.
Yeah, that math doesn't
Yeah.
work
Yeah,
out if
maybe
you have
Chad
half of
can
the students.
take another look at that data, but yeah, it looks like if you looked at the percentage going across every year, it's about the same, but so I know at different times our numbers fluctuate, right, from grade to grade, but that looks significant, so maybe Chad will go back and
Yeah,
revisit
I'm
that
gonna go
one.
look at that again. Thank you, Brad. Mr. Toon, sorry, trustee Toon, I apologize. Yeah, there has been typos you find in these once in a while, so. Yeah, I'm guessing too. Yeah. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that part. But yes,
The variables that can affect this data are just making my brain spin. I don't know how you do it.
yeah.
Where do you start?
Where do I start?
No, and that's seriously,
Sleepless nights.
where or how we start to analyze it, to find out, to get some answers.
And that's an excellent question. And we do data analysis with our staff and looking at what does the data say, how does it look. So you start with your accountability pillars and start to work through those. And then using some of the tools we have, from Dossier to other things, to organize some of those tools for it to tell a story. And then you try to pull those from that story and identify some of the variables that might be there. Data walks, data conversations, working with staff. You're going to see the schools be doing the similar things. We try to model that and show that to say, what does the data say? What does it mean? And where do you have the strategies and goals to address that, right? So, and as we work with principals, we talk about this. So that's where it begins, right? So work with principals, leaders, principals work with teachers, and we work towards using that data for change. So student improvement.
That's where you just said where I thought you'd start.
Yeah.
With the principals.
Yeah, and that's Daryl and I did our trips, and Richard, and we talked about data and talked about other things at first, but that was one of the things we talked about. And what is the data telling you? Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Chad? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have our mental health and counseling. I'd like to welcome Dr. Kate Schwarzenberger. Great. I was like, I'll try not to murder your last name. Yep. Yep. Kate is our clinical team lead. Will update the Board of Trustees regarding mental health and counseling throughout the Livingston Range School Division. So thank you, Kate.
Okay, thank you for having me. Nice to meet you. Were you able to pull up my presentation, and I'll go with that. Yeah, Jen sent it to you. It should be there. Yeah, no problem. The first thing on the list is introducing myself anyway, so maybe I could start with that. So I am Kate Schwarzenberger, and I replaced Kendra Massey. I replaced her at a 0.6. Previously, she was a 1.0, so I'm here a few days less. Just a little bit about my background. So I'm also a clinical psychologist. I worked with Kendra at the Alberta Children's Hospital, where I worked for the past 10 years. I worked in a variety of medical clinics there, and then I spent the last 5 or 6 years, I can't remember, at the Child Advocacy Center working in the child abuse clinic. So my areas of specialty are trauma with children. And so I've had a lot of experience there. And then we moved to Lethbridge, and I was lucky enough to be hired into Kendra's maternity leave. A little bit else. I have a PhD from the University of Windsor. I also got my master's there as well. I think that's sufficient background. You can ask me if you want any more information, but that's a little bit about me. Perfect. So we can go to the next page. it can be shared if, do you guys need it as well, or? Okay, yeah. All right, so maybe I would just start with, sorry, I'm not picking up, there we go. The FTE for the Family School Liaison Counselors. So we have had a bit of a change in that in a positive direction. So we have a total of 8.8 FTE right now, but in response to repeated requests and need from Crow's Nest Consolidated High School, we have increased the FTE there. So now they will be up to a 1.0 instead of only a 0.5. This was in response to a number of threat and risk assessments on a regularly ongoing basis there. That was really, we weren't getting to more of the health promotion and addressing the counseling needs because we were just doing a lot of crisis management. So we were able to up our FTE there, which is a positive thing. We do have one of our family school liaison counselors on medical leave, and so we do have some gaps right now in Claire's home at the high school. We do have some emergency coverage, but we are looking to fill that more completely. We just haven't been able to hire into a temporary position. It's hard to fill a 3-month position. We do have continued requests from almost all the schools for more family school liaison counselor support. There seems to be quite a high demand, which I'll go through and show you our stats and you can see where they're coming from, but they're very well utilized at the school, and the schools always give us the message that they would like more counselor time. So in terms of the role, I think you guys know the role of the family school liaison counselor, but I'll just review that quickly. One thing that we're really trying to work on is mental health skill building and mental health skill promotion. Like I said, trying to focus less on risk management and crisis management and more on upstream skill building for the students. What we really want is to help the students meet the preconditions to learning. So help them be able to come into the classroom and be able to take in the information and address anything that's getting in the way there. So any of their social, emotional, or behavioral needs that are preventing them from participating in the academic part of school. And they do that through group programs, school-wide initiatives, group counseling, individual counseling, and then also they do a lot of as needed in the moment regulation with students, as well as consulting with the staff and being available on multidisciplinary meetings with parents and working together with the family and the school. So they have a whole bunch of different roles that they play. They also do a lot of referring to outside agencies and helping to facilitate more in-depth counseling. So referring to Alberta Health Services. Okay, so this year we started a new online stats system, and so I do have some statistics for you, but they are limited. So I'm just going to say it's limited based on how much my counselors entered their data. And so not everybody was in full compliance. So we do have more than 181 students that we're seeing, but 181 students were entered. We have a big gap in Claresholm because that's where our counselor is on medical leave. And so none of the Claresholm high school data has been entered. So when you're looking at this data, it doesn't reflect the Claresholm High School. Also, we didn't get any data from FP Walsh. So that is also not reflected here. And then limited data from a few other schools. So it's an estimate, but it's not perfect. Right, and the other data, for some reason, the program today wouldn't allow me to pull up the group data. So that is also missing. I only have the individual data, not the groups that people are running. Just a bit of a glitch in the program that Kevin's fixing. So of interest, we see more males than females, which you might notice as that's a bit odd. That's not normally typical for counseling. Maybe if we had all the data, that might level out a little bit more, but I'm pretty impressed that that many males are seeking services. I think that's a really positive thing. We did look a little bit at different ethnicities. The way the data system is set up, we don't look at all ethnicities, so we only have a few selects. So we looked at the number of refugees and new immigrants, Low German, Mennonite, and Indigenous population. The Indigenous population you'll see is about 25% of who we see. We see about 2 refugees at this time, again, of the 181, and 1 Low German Mennonite. 2 are identifying as LGBTQ, and 10 have identified cognitive and or physical disabilities. So the top areas of concern that we're seeing are anxiety, and trauma is very close behind that. I think likely the trauma is an underestimate because we look at domestic violence exposure and parental addictions separately, and I would put that all under trauma. So if you coded that all together, it would increase trauma to being our #1 presenting concern, and anxiety being second to that. So they are seeing some pretty intense cases and doing a very good job managing that. Okay, so in terms of who's making the referrals, I thought this was fairly positive. It's about half and half between school staff and self or caregiver referral. So parents and students are feeling comfortable to refer themselves, and also teachers and administrators are taking advantage of the service and referring students to see our counselors. There is also some referral from our community partners. That would be when family physicians or mental health therapists make a referral to the school counselors. In terms of frequency of service, I think also another really positive thing is most of our students are seen on an as-needed basis, and that's been a really big push, is to try to see them when they need the service. So when they're in crisis, when they're having, especially with our elementary school kids, helping them regulate in the moment and getting more into the classrooms and the hallways and the playgrounds to help them manage whatever's going on for them in the moment and not having to wait for a session in their office. And so I think that's positive to see that that's about half of how we see our students. The rest is on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Some daily, mostly those would be for check-ins, so kids that are having a hard time would pop in for a quick check-in, usually at the beginning of the day, to see how things are going and start their day in a positive way, and then go from there. Okay, that's all I had. Questions? Yeah.
May I call you Kate?
Yes, that's fine.
Kate, do you have a pie graph with grade levels at all?
I do have that, yes. I don't have it in my presentation.
So
but
could you just
I
generally give me an outlook of, so 1 to 3 percentage-wise, like a pie chart?
I don't think I could do that accurately without looking at it. I'm not sure I'm familiar enough with the numbers to give you an accurate estimate, but I could add that to the presentation, and when you get it, send it to you that way. Yeah.
Any other questions? Trustee Poitras?
When you have students that are in need and you don't have someone in the school at all times, who can they check in with then?
Yeah, so that is a problem for some of our schools that only have a part-time counselor, which is a good portion of our schools. And it's hard because we're really trying to work on building relationship and having someone that they can check in with. But we're trying to build relationship with teachers, with learning support teachers, with admin, so that they can feel comfortable checking in with a variety of people at the school. So hopefully they would be able to connect with their classroom teacher. If they didn't have a relationship there, they could connect with a learning support teacher or an EA or the admin.
Thank
Also,
you.
sorry, also there's the child and youth care workers in some of the schools, and so they could check in with them as well.
I know that it's hard for us to keep, the budget balanced and having people there, but I was happy to see how our marks came in on a safe and caring environment, because that gives the impression that with so many students doing it, that they do feel safe and cared for in our schools. And so I was wondering, are they able to go talk to other people? And it sounds like they have multiple resources, which I appreciate. So thank you.
Yeah, that is one of the things one of the roles of the counselor is to try and increase that student's network with other people at the school and increase their support network. Yep.
Trustee McKee?
I don't have my my chart of who is part of your department, but do you oversee Kevin's work as well, or is that no?
No.
You just work with the counselors?
Right, so I oversee the counselors and then work collaboratively with the behavior support team. So I work with Kevin and Shannon. We try to work together as a team.
So none of his data would be part of the data that you presented to us, and that would be separate
Correct.
from what the counselors actually see and visit in the schools.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
The only shared is that Kevin created the data management system, so that's his credit. He did that.
Any other questions? Trustee Yegas?
Do you do a lot of close work with community partners like mental health, addictions, RCMP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, we try to. Unfortunately, we usually are interacting with them when a crisis comes up at the school. So usually during our violence and threat risk assessments is where we have most of our collaboration, because the RCMP, Child and Family Services, and mental health all come to the table when we have a threat assessment. So we do a lot of work that way. We are hoping to have more joint projects, and so we do have a couple of exciting projects on the go. We do have an ADHD program that we run joint with Alberta Health Services, where one of their counselors comes in and runs the program with one of our counselors, and that's joint amongst different school boards as well. And another project that we have on the go is to start a Connect attachment-based parenting program, and that would be joint with Alberta Health Services and with our school counselors. We've run that in Claire's home, and we're hoping to extend that to Crow's Nest Past in Nanton to really help bolster the parent support and their relationship with the school, and really address a need that we see and have more of that collaboration between Alberta Health Services and the school.
Okay, what about with the general practitioners? Good collaboration and communication there in the communities with the local doctors?
Yes, again, usually around crisis. So we're usually interacting with them when there's a suicidal student, and so we do have interactions there. But we also try to collaborate on any of our kids who have medical needs, and when we're doing our school planning for them. So we will have them to the table, or we'll do phone calls or any way where we can include them. Same for pediatricians and psychiatrists and all the different health practitioners.
When a family is in a crisis, like with family domestic violence, and the student have to, or the child have to, and the mother has to go to the women's shelter, how do you work with the children that are there? What do you do? Or is that a total separation between the school and the women's shelter? Whether it be in Pincher Creek or in Lethbridge or wherever?
So you mean when the students are moved to the women's shelter?
When the mother has to go to the shelter, yeah.
Right. So they would continue to collaborate, and the school counselor would facilitate talking with the shelter and the staff there and trying to best support the student. I can't think of a specific example that I've been involved in, like that specific type of case, but our general procedure would be to collaborate with all community agencies and continue to support the child as they transition if they have to move schools or they're doing homeschooling or whatever that plan would look like for them.
Great, thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you.
So in lieu of our time being ahead of schedule, I'm not sure if our next presenters were going to come in early or not. Okay, so that still gives us a good 20 minutes. So I think we'll move up our G5, our advocacy committee. Nikki, could you please bring up the list of committees? So while Nikki's doing that, I guess we'll do it just like we did our regular, but anyone who's interested can just have a little speech, and then we'll write down, was it 2 people on it, Brad? 2 trustees?
Where are you? You're not ready to vote then yet?
We don't even know who wants. No, we don't know yet. So here's our list of committees. Everybody's on already. Anybody interested in this committee can put up their hand, and then you can give a little speech. And well, I'm not. And then we will vote. We'll be voting in 2 trustees. So can I show of hands who's interested on the advocacy committee? 3. So Trustee Poitras, Trustee Toon, and Trustee Yegas. Trustee Poitras, would you like to start us off with a speech?
That's the first time I've been first alphabetically.
I'm just going down the row. It doesn't have to be alphabetically.
So I would love to be a part of the advocacy committee. I feel like I have the time to put into it. I think it's very important, like I said earlier, to advocate, to make sure that we're all on the same page. One thing I loved when I became a trustee was our 3 key messages that we do at the end of each meeting, so that when we go out to the school council meetings, we are all taking that same message. And I think that it's important for us to have something similar like that, where we are constantly focused as a group on advocating about ourselves in different ways each month or whatever it happens to be. So I think working with Carly and this committee could really be a great way to get a unified voice and share strategic ways of advocating for trusteeship.
Thank you, Trustee Poitras. Trustee Toon?
Thank you. Really excited for the opportunity for this new committee. I am too really passionate about this. I'm not currently on a lot of committees, like the Labor Relations Committee. That's a really intensive one. I am on the provincial board, but I think that'll be a positive, because having access to some of the advocacy committee as it's coming forward in draft form would allow for some of the advocacy work to be expedited that's coming forward. So really thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. Trustee Yegas?
I've always promoted advocacy. I feel it's very important. I've have the involvement not only in the past but even now with various groups that I think we could get information for in terms of a plan. I've done up advocacy plans before for various groups. I'm not on too many committees right now, and I really feel that this one I could do. I can really help with this one, and I would really like to be on it. I was the one who put it on the evaluation.
Thank you. All right, Jeff will pass out papers and we'll write down 2 names, please. And sorry. Thank you. John, if you could have a seat, we're going to come back. Our new advocacy committee is trustee Yegus and trustee Poitras. Can I get a motion to destroy the ballots, please? Greg? Trustee Long, please. All in favor? Sorry, I was moving on. All right. Yeah, we can, do you guys want to do our key messages right now? Because we still have 15 minutes before our presenter could be here for our last presentation. Okay. Top three key, I think our advocacy committee.
Yeah, I was going to say the budget, we
Yep.
should really do it. I think if the one Jeff sends out, that
Yeah.
what he did, then we can show that or have that. I like to,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the budget that you send out, Jeff, we'll be able to present to school councils? Yeah, okay.
Are there things in there we shouldn't? Yes, there you go. Exactly, thank you.
If there's any key points that written,
Well,
we could write down and mention, so we can make sure we're all speaking from the same, if you could attach, that would be great. Thank you. So Jeff will send out that and along with some key points so that we all know we're all speaking the same language. So budget is one of them. Did we decide on advocacy?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, advocacy committee. And then what, was there a third, sorry? Accountability pillar?
Yes.
It's being presented, like all of the principals presented in their schools, right?
This is the divisionally though. This is a little different than the school ones. This is divisionally and comparing to the province.
So will administration be doing their individual
Yes,
schools?
they should already have it.
Or both?
No. Go ahead.
The administrators will be presenting to their school council
About this? Oh,
and their
so-
schools, yep, their own schools, yep.
I feel like when you go to a school council meeting and you get it on your school, that's a lot. It's like a lot to go through with the principal, and it's great, and it pertains to your students. And so then coming the next month and getting another one, or if they happen to be on the same, it kind of feels redundant to me. I don't know. It's just my opinion.
It would give them something to compare.
Okay, yeah. We could talk about the our CEO and evaluation, and if we don't want to have the accountability on there, we can talk about our evaluations as CEO and board.
I think it's important for us to have our accountability pillar. It's a big thing that we do as trustees.
Okay.
I agree with Brad.
So I just have a question. When we go as a trustee to present the accountability pillar, then would we go through it, like through the slides like this, or would we just bring it printed for them and then like do a little highlight blurb? Like how would we present that?
So I could make a suggestion on that. Carly did put out a press release on it, so we could provide that to you along with the jurisdictional summary, the one-pager, and that's probably enough and sufficient for a school council meeting, if you'd like that idea.
I think that's a great idea, because I think going through the slides, we wouldn't be able to do it justice. I think having something for them to read would be better suited. Thank you.
Chad could provide us with an analysis of all the data, total breakdown by Tuesday?
Maybe, no, just kidding. Whatever you need, Greg, Trustee Long.
Thank you. So we have our advocacy, our accountability pillar, and, sorry, what was the budget impact, sorry, yeah, I just didn't write that down. And there's a top three, everyone's good with that? Good. My hair keeps sticking to this.
So can I just ask Jeff, Mr. Perry a question? So on that budget, like you'll probably have it set up where you have little numbers again on some of the values, and then you'll just have a little summary below, like you normally have with the budget then? Is that kind of what you had in mind for your explanation of, for some of those numbers?
It depends what you want to present as a board to them. I mean, the email that I sent out earlier has the same information. It's a summary. That's probably what I'll look to providing you with maybe a shorter version of that for your school council. I don't know if you want to go through the document or not. Probably just the summary is sufficient for your school council, right? So.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that would be great, yeah.
Trustee Burdette?
Yeah, I think a lot of parents are gonna have, there's been a lot of stuff in the media about the impact of what happened, what's going on in Calgary, what's going on everywhere else. And as long as I think we can speak to that we had planned ahead and the impact isn't going to be as huge for us because of that planning, I think that's the message that people need to hear.
Thank you. All right, everybody, we still have a few minutes, so I guess we'll just take, yeah, we'll come back at 4 o'clock because our next presenter is hopefully going to be here by 4. All right, everybody, I'm going to call us back to order at 4:03. We have our path planning sessions presenter. Horace Allen, Isabel Allen, and Crossness Consolidated School each had a session on the path planning process. PATH is a creative planning tool which starts in the future and works backwards towards an outcome of first, beginning. Steps that are possible and positive. This was used to help set goals for each school. I'd like to introduce Marnie.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm
You're
going
on.
to invite you all to stand up so you have a chance to look at each of the posters of the schools for the PATH process. And if you can read upside down, stand on that side, or if not, stand here.
Every teacher can read upside
Yeah.
down, so.
Yes, me too, I guess I could. So just some background kind of history. With the 3 schools, Horace Allen, Isabel Allen, and Crossness Consolidated, all 3 schools are also involved in a community engagement project with Mount Royal University. And because the 3 schools are collaborating much closely, we are being supported with Mount Royal University and John Taylor in really looking at schools that are in a community and really focusing on how might we create a resilient community where students are engaged and are ready for learning that happens throughout life. So it's a community-based project that addresses learning in all stages of life. So of course then, all 3 schools thought it would be a very timely process to go through the PATH process in order to lay out our vision for this project with John Taylor and the University of Mount Royal, and for our own school planning and school improvement. So this is Horace Allen, and I will take you through theirs as best as I can. And we did have a chance actually to share with all 3 schools at one of our most recent tri-school council meetings. So Horace Allen School is a K-3 school, and they have really embraced nature and forestry and taking advantage of the rich environment that we're in. And so they have even used now the acronym LAND, and they've called it Learning and Nature Discovery. So most of the things that they do encompasses their land, where you come from, and discovery by investigating all those things that can be tied to your backyard, so to speak, when it comes to curriculum. So in their PATH process, as with all of them, it was facilitated by Ellie Elliott, former superintendent for Livingston Range, so that was really fantastic. And then we had different artists to draw out the PATH process. I'm not sure who did Horace Allen or CCHS, but when we get to ISS, it was Karen Patton who did our illustrations. Oh, there we go.
Say Barbara Ann did the artwork when I was there for CCHS.
Okay, thank you.
And who's, Roy?
Roy.
Roy, yeah.
Roy Latch. I didn't know that. Okay. So as you see through the path that was described in the introduction, you take a look at really where do you want to be? So what's your vision? So the North Star on the far end with the year of 2022. And so as a school community, Horace Allen is aiming for academic growth, social growth, mental health, and physical health of all their students and their families. And they are also being supported through Olds College, through their nature and forest school kind of component that they have. They've embedded already a lot of focus and time developing their nature area out behind the school and expanding different play areas for risky play and that whole element as well. So that's where they want to be in 2022, that it's a school community. And of course, a school community is made up of more than just the school. As you can see, the organizations that they've listed there, certainly enlisting schools, seniors in the community through York Creek Lodge. They already have Mountain View involved a lot with their nutrition program, really connecting with Alberta Parks, because of course it connects with land and nature, and of course the students themselves. Then what happens in the path process is you kind of take a look at where you're at now. So where are you at now, so that you might be able to identify your next steps to get to that 2022. So they were excited, motivated. It was funny because they did theirs at the end of August in their preparation the week before students arrived. And all of the words there are very encouraging and enthusiastic. There's a few nervous, kind of curious, but yeah, just about the unknown and what might lie ahead. They know that they have to enroll a school community, and a school community involves more than just those people that are in the school. Also on their list of who to enroll is a Child Nature Alliance, and they've made connections with that group just to be more closely tied to what it would take to become a designated forest school, and I know that that's part of one of their goals. They see as their strengths, certainly as we advise to all of our students, that permission to fail and permission to try again, and how we learn from our mistakes. Lots of reflection, and a big piece about removing any possible barriers. So what is getting in the way of taking kids outside? And so really there are no barriers. They go outside when it's wet, when it's cold, when it's mucky. I know they were looking at investing in, I don't know, there's some sort of pantsuit that you just put over top of everything, like for young little kids, that they can get grubby and messy and curious with all sorts of things out in nature. And the kids are loving it. I know Elaine and Myrna have said that, yeah, parents love it. Kids are coming to school properly dressed because they're expecting that they're going to spend time outside. And it's really created a new energy, even on staff, just that excitement to be outside. Their first steps, of course, they're already past, their first steps. Some of the things that they did buy is winter gear, so that if there are economic conditions that prevent certain parents from having what they need for their kids, that's not a barrier. They have a landscape designer as well. They're collaborating with to design their forest space, so pretty cool. And they also have bought for all of the kids, every student has a bento box, so they really take in the whole nature thing about reducing waste. So it's not just something that they say, it certainly encompasses everything that they do in the school. So over the next 3 months, I know they're coming up onto one of their winter kind of festival things here before Christmas holidays. They've had a lot of outdoor play days, and if you don't know where everyone should know where Horace Allen is. There's a beautiful ravine down below, and very much on a very regular basis, kids in classrooms are down there exploring and connecting to curriculum in whatever ways that they can. Teachers are contributing to the school newsletter. I know that they were having students contributing to that as well. And a lot of their, let's say, celebrations are taking an outdoor focus as well. So their Spring Fest will also be held, outdoors. So where they're at as they move forward into the next 6 months, they're looking to do some fundraising, and again, to bolster up their outdoor classroom, their nature area, really increasing that message out to the community that this is who they are as a school. It's not just limited to this is who we are based on event by event, but really kind of changing the overall appeal of the schools, that this is just how we do things. It's not just, we're not named by our events that we have. And then by 20, which is next year. Yeah. Certainly well on their way. Part of the PATH process is that it's always framed positively. So these are the positive things that can happen. Of course, it's possible, and we will achieve our goal. So if there's any questions about Horace Allen,
How about this one here? Presentation to board. Can you scratch that one off now?
yeah, check.
Is this a goal for them all to have bento boxes, or they do?
Yeah, they now do. Yeah. They purchased their bento boxes with the nutrition money that was left over from last year. So they were actually ahead of themselves.
And so
every
all
student has one.
students were given one
Yes.
to keep.
Yeah. And all staff have one as well.
That is interesting. Okay.
They do incredible fundraising.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
excellent for fundraising.
And their hike-a-thon was last school year to raise money as well. And if you've been to their garden, it's beautiful.
Every teacher tries to have a class outside during the week.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
they make it a requirement.
That it's naturally embedded into the way of doing and way of teaching and learning there.
They're way along in the conceptual part of it. Now it's the building, like infrastructure.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit there, but there's a lot of plans for that. I was telling you about the living.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's,
And yet there are provincial, well, maybe even national organizations that are looking at their school
Yeah.
as a model for others to follow. Yeah, national.
Yeah, that's like, I don't even know what to say. It's like amazing. I love that this is in our division and that this is great.
I love that you came and presented it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
seriously.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and so each of the schools in the Crow's Nest Paths went through this process. And so each of you have a product like this, and
Yeah,
it'll be
we do.
displayed at different places in their school.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, when I was at GR Davis, we did a similar thing, and it was in my office, right behind my desk, and every time a staff member or a parent came in, a student, they saw our plan right there. So I hope it's being referred to frequently
Yeah.
and being brought up.
It is.